Hello, good morning, and welcome to the TikTok Transparency Forum. I'm Francis Stones. I'm the head of brand safety for TikTok in Europe, and today we will give you an update on Project Clover. Project Clover is a program focused on creating a specially designed, secure enclave for European TikTok user data. It reinforces our commitment to a European data governance approach that places the safeguarding of user data at its core. I'm delighted to be joined by Theo Bertram, TikTok's Head of Government Relations for Europe, and Elaine Fox, TikTok's Head of Privacy, to start today's session. As always, we have subject matter experts on hand, so if you do have questions, please post them in the chat box, and we will respond to each and every question we receive during the event today. Okay, let's get started.
Good morning. I'm Theo Bertram, TikTok's Vice President for Government Relations and Public Policy for Europe.
And I'm Elaine Fox, TikTok's Head of Privacy for Europe. Today, our intention is to be transparent about our data security efforts in Europe and also to answer the questions that you've kindly sent during the registration process.
We know we face a high level of scrutiny as a result of our parent company's Chinese heritage, and that scrutiny requires a unique level of transparency and accountability. In that spirit, we want to share details today about how we're meeting this commitment.
To begin with, we want to set the scene and provide context into the types of personal data TikTok does collect and what we use that data for. We collect account information data. This is information users provide when setting up an account on TikTok. We collect usage data. This is data about how a user engages with the app. This data helps us to recommend more relevant content to our community. We also collect information about device settings, such as device model and operating system, which allows us to improve our overall user experience. The data points I've just mentioned are also used to provide a more personalized advertising experience for our users who are over the age of 18 and who have agreed to personalized advertising. The personal data we collect through the app is in line with industry norms, but as Theo mentioned earlier, we do face a high level of scrutiny, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to host this event today, to dispel the myths about data and TikTok and to explain our data governance strategy.
So, in March this year, we officially announced our industry-leading European data governance strategy called Project Clover. From our early days in Europe, we've been open about our data governance principles. Store European data in Europe, restrict data flows of European data to a minimum, and limit the number of employees with access to user data. So how does Project Clover help us meet these goals?
First of all, we will store all of our European user data in Europe, European data centers by default. We'll have 3 data centers, 2 in Ireland and 1 in Norway. And this will give us sufficient capacity to store our European user data within the region. These data centers will be the default storage location for the personal data of our European users. The first Irish data center is already online, and we've started migrating data to this data center. The second Irish data center and the data center in Norway will come online in 2024. We expect to fully migrate all EEA UK personal data relating to our users to these data centers by the end of 2024. However, we are not waiting for our European data centers to become fully operational to implement our enhanced data security controls. We've already started storing our European data by default in the designated secure area known as the European Enclave.
Clover will also provide enhanced data controls and restrictions. We're building security gateways that will determine which employees can access European user data for the purposes of their job. Permissions to access data will only be granted on a case-by-case basis, subject to demonstrated need, and will comply with all the relevant data protection laws. When Clover is fully operationalized, European personal data will need to go through these additional security gateways before it can be accessed. And let me be clear, protected user data will not be accessible by employees who are based in China. Finally, we know it's not enough for us to say, trust us. That's why all of this will be overseen by an independent European cybersecurity company. Last month, we took the important step of announcing NCC Group would carry out this role of independent scrutiny and oversight. Earlier this year, we started working with NCC Group to lay the foundation for this work on security gateways. NCC will independently audit our data controls, monitor the data flows, validate our privacy-enhancing technologies, provide independent verification, and report any incidents. We'll meet NCC Group in the next session and answer questions you submitted during the registration process. We've given you a lot of technical information, but we want to explain one more thing, and that's what we mean by protected data. Elaine, over to you.
So what is protected data? Protected data is widely defined and will include all EEA UK personal data. Let me give you some examples. A user's real name, email address, phone number, IP address. Let me also explain what are the exceptions. There are 3 exceptions. Interoperable data. This is the data which needs to flow to enable an interoperable global platform, so users from different regions can view and engage with each other's profiles and content. Public data is, as you'd expect, data which is shared publicly. For example, content which a user chooses to make available to an audience of everyone. And aggregated data. So de-identified aggregate data, like dashboards containing a string of numeric values, may also need to be accessed by global teams as part of their roles for metrics and data statistics, and to provide TikTok with their global functions.
So we've said a lot, but if there are just 3 things you take from this session. First, we have 3 data centers, and the first one is now open. Second, we have already started to migrate EEA and UK personal data to that Irish data center. And finally, we have confirmed NCC Group as our third-party independent security service provider. Project Clover is a multi-billion-dollar investment, which we hope shows our commitment and intent for protecting and respecting our community's security and privacy. Thank you for listening, and if you have questions, please continue to post in the chat box or get in touch through your TikTok contact.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining today. My name's James Chandler and I'm CMO for IAB UK. We're joined by Elaine and Theo, who you've just met, and Stephen Bailey from NCC Group. Stephen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, so I'm Steve Bailey. I'm NCC Group's Global Privacy Director, and I'm our lead for our involvement in Project Clover.
Great. Elaine, can we start with you?
Yeah.
Before these security gateways set up, so state of play now, is any of the data accessible and is that access unfettered?
No. So in terms of our current status quo, our data, our user data for our EEA and UK users is stored in our global data centers in the US, Singapore and Malaysia. It's subject to multi-tiered access permission controls. So access to the user data is limited to employees who have demonstrated that they need it to complete their actual roles, and it's limited for the purposes of that particular action.
Got it. And then when the measures come in, Theo, is there any instance in which the UK and European data could be accessed by China?
So the protected European UK user data cannot be accessed by employees in China.
Yeah. Tell us a bit more about NCC Group, Stephen. I'm not aware of you before. I'm not big into cyber security, but perhaps for the uninitiated, tell us what you do and how you be working with TikTok.
So we're a cybersecurity and risk mitigation organisation And we do things ranging from making sure that the code people use for creating things like applications is secure, all the way through to providing managed security services for organisations to look for suspicious or malicious traffic, identifying security vulnerabilities, and then helping them to remediate those things.
Yeah. And make a big point about the relationship with NCC. Talk us a bit about the process you went through in selecting them.
So we were looking for a European security company, one that had the ability to do this complicated and big task, and one that had a really high standing in the industry and among security experts.
Yeah.
And we looked at a number of companies, and NCC Group definitely came out top. And it's not just, and I think one of the factors for us is also the independence and the significance of them being oversight and separate to us.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important part of it as well.
Was there ever a version of the world where you could have done it without the third-party oversight?
We could have done it without the third-party oversight. We had the data centers, we can move the data there, we can put all of their complex gateways and privacy-enhancing technologies. We could have done most of that, but having NCC Group means what we can do can be stronger and better by having another company come in and bring their expertise, especially one with the expertise of NCC Group.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it's about giving that confidence to people outside the company, that it's not just us saying, trust us, your data is secure. Yeah. We now have another third-party, fully independent company providing that oversight and that confidence for our users, for our stakeholders, that what we're saying we're actually doing.
Got it. I want to ask you about security gateways, because we've heard lots about it in the previous session. You just mentioned it there. Give us the 101 on what security gateways are and what exactly they do in this context.
So the security gateway is a digital barrier that sits between the user data, so the European enclave, and things like applications and people who want to use that data. And it also ensures that the data that leaves the European enclave is appropriate, and the people that are accessing it have a genuine need to access that data for their work.
And is using a cybersecurity like yours, is that table stakes for the industry now, or is this, as we've heard, genuinely going over and above?
So it's very hard to give a definitive view on whether anybody else is doing it, because many organisations are very cautious about the security measures and relationships that they have in place. But I've never seen something like this. We do lots of the different bits for many organisations, but pulling it together it is something that I've not seen before. And it's NCC Group's purpose is about creating a secure digital future, and for us this goes right to the very heart of that purpose.
Great. We mentioned stakeholders there, Elaine. Talk to us about advertisers and agencies. What sort of questions are you getting from them?
Yeah, I think the key question we get from advertisers is, what do you do to keep the personal data that we share with you safe? Right. Under Clover, where will advertiser personal data, where will that be stored? We have a huge dedicated internal team in terms of our privacy and data protection, our ODPO, the Office of Data Protection Officer as well, located in Dublin and in London. And so we work together in terms of ensuring privacy of all user data is maintained under our obligations in GDPR. When it comes to Clover, the personal data which we receive from our advertisers will fall within the definition of protected data. So it will be stored in the European enclave and will benefit from all of the additional protections and security gateways, as Stephen has mentioned, of all other user data within that European enclave.
Got it. You talked earlier as well about there'll be specific types of employees that can access this data. It gives a sense of who those employees might be.
Yeah, it's a great question. So access to any user data, be it protected data or accepted data, is subject to demonstrated need of the particular employee to complete their particular role. Example of some employees in the context of advertising in particular, I think, or what our advertisers can be most interested in is access to aggregated statistics and data around daily active users, monthly active users, how many users engaged with a particular campaign. All of these data sets are subject to rigorous controls in terms of ensuring that it's not identifiable to a particular individual user. But they're the kind of data types and the kind of roles where employees globally need to access certain data for certain circumstances.
Got it. So agencies will still be able to ask those sort of rudimentary planning questions of, here's a target audience, here's what they're interested in, tell me how many people, how can I reach them on TikTok?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the core elements of Clover is seeking to ensure that we have very, very robust privacy and security and building these security gateways around protected data. But it's also important that we can maintain an interoperable global platform so we can provide the service both to our users and our advertisers also.
Yeah. Why Ireland? Why Norway?
We looked at lots of countries. We looked at a lot of factors, and Ireland and Norway came out top. So it's not really more complicated than that.
And do you feel like all the steps that you've talked about, do you feel it satisfies the stakeholders, be it advertisers and agencies, whether it's regulators, governments? Do you feel it gets into sort of satisfying this ask or this need they have around scrutiny?
Well, I guess that's a question really for them rather than us, but we hope so. And I think we feel confident that what we're doing is really substantial and significant. And we're also really open to people's questions, to hearing how we can do even better, what could we further improve. I think what the two companies are doing is quite unprecedented. And so we're also open to how can we do it better. But I do think that this is absolutely industry leading. And I think in terms of giving people that confidence, for us to be able to say, it's not just a question of saying, trust us.
Yeah.
You can actually ask someone else to verify and validate. I think that is really important.
Yeah, and I think probably so much of the narrative, which I think is unfair at times across the industry of platforms, is this marking your own homework sense. But actually, when you lift the bonnet, as we can see here, there's so much going on, and rightly the security comes. What's next, I guess? I mean, this feels like it's keeping you extremely busy. Is this sort of Clover finished now and you move on to the next thing?
No, so Clover is ongoing,
right,
and we're on a journey. We have made huge progress and investment as a business, and we are very much meeting our milestones and really putting a lot of resource and key elements behind it to move forward. We know it's important that we progress this quickly, but we are on a journey, and I think we're very keen to check in with our users and with our advertisers, just to kind of give an update on where we are, and also to more to come. I would say it's a key area, a key priority, but more to come.
Yeah, great. And what about you, Stephen? When we go away from here, how's NCC working with TikTok on a day-to-day basis? What are the types of things that you're doing?
So we'll be setting up a security monitoring centre that will be 24/7, 365, and that'll be looking for things like malicious or suspicious traffic, be looking to identify any security vulnerabilities, and then we'll be helping to look at what the fixes for those might be and how quickly they need to be done. As there are updates made to the security gateways, the digital barriers that we just talked about, we'll be checking that code to make sure it is secure, and only the checked code is being used in those gateways. We'll be validating the data moving in and out of the European enclave, so the data store for the user data. And we'll be doing things like assessing the main platform application, the mobile applications, again, looking for vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, and also just validating the data types that are being collected from users by the platform.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly integrated project. Hasn't happened overnight. We took multi-billion-pound investment. For a business like TikTok, you're going to have a whole range of priorities. Last year we were talking about child safety, and there's a whole raft of other things you'll be wrestling with. Where does this sit in terms of priorities for TikTok?
So safety and security are our key priorities. And for our CEO show, he's been very clear that building trust earning trust of our users in this area is absolutely a key priority for the business.
Great. Thank you all very, very much for joining me. So thank you for listening to us. I'm going to hand back to Francis now to close the session.
So that's it for today. We've learnt about Project Clover and we've heard from the NCC Group, and we'll soon launch a dedicated website to keep you updated on our European data governance strategy. I'd like to thank all of our speakers today, but most importantly, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us. We'll be back next year with another Transparency Forum. Until then, you can keep up to date with all of the latest TikTok safety and security news through our new safety newsletter. Once again, thank you and goodbye.